Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Let's just take a moment's silence for all the haters, Karens and the trolls. That's enough. Be sure to check out the blooper reel at the end of the video, which is then followed by the end screen where you will find more videos listed. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Sullivan, Running with the Devil, Part 1. This awesome series is written by getyaisha. Daddies, mummies, brothers, sisters, it is a new era and a new age. Every new age brings something new. There's a new site that gives you all your quality jackets, joggers, shoes, bags, hoodies and lots more. Metaphysik.com. Check them out today and I bet you won't regret patronising with them, and you will definitely demand more. It's Metaphysik today, Metaphysik tomorrow, and Metaphysik forever. 100% perfection. Remember to use the code XYZ for a 10% discount. I'm gonna bypass the backstory of what happened to the world because, let's be honest, it doesn't really matter. Long story short, everything went to shit, and now those of us left do what we can to get by. Don't get me wrong, there was no apocalypse. Things are just different now. Food and water are as good as gold. Smugglers make a hell of a living. I'm not a smuggler, I'm a city rat. I don't know shit about hunting, but I know how to steal, and I'm damn good at it. I mainly hijack shipments coming into the city. Of course, things being what they are, it's not a job you can do alone. My crew is tight knit. We've known each other since before the world fell apart. There's the big man, Dre. Don't let his appearance fool you, the guy's a genius. I once saw him build a bomb out of fertilizer and random chemicals we found. Next up is Samantha, or Sam. She's the designated driver. If it flies, floats or rolls, she's behind the wheel. Last but not least, there's me. I'm Max. I find the jobs and occasionally handle the bloodier side of things. It's a line of work I'm more than familiar with. Our current shit show kicks off at one of our favourite dive bars called the Rolling Bones. The drinks are strong, the music's loud, and most of the locals mind their own business. And arguing over who could steal a car the fastest, when the waitress came over and slipped me a napkin. Written on it were the numbers 31.03. That's the code clients use when they want something stolen. The waitress motioned to a man sitting at the bar and he raised his glass. It had been weeks since we'd had a paying gig. The last couple went tits up thanks to claim jumpers and headhunters sticking their filthy fingers in our little slice of the pie. Claim jumpers are the bottom of the barrel. They wait till the heavier lifting is done, then swoop in and take the score, typically leaving nothing but bodies behind. It was personal with this last run-in though. A former partner of mine, Sullivan, had been stalking us and doing his best to make sure we don't eat. In all honesty, I did try to kill him, but he deserved it. Headhunters are a different breed altogether. As the name would imply, they are cannibals that collect food for other cannibals. They also collect bounties, which is why they are after us. There's a lot of people who want us gone. Hazards of the occupation, if you ask me. In any case, I tapped the table and looked at Sam as Dr. Dre downed his last shot. Fresh fish on the line. I'll be back. She smiled before waving the waitress back over to order another round. Load 'em up. We're getting dirty tonight. Shaking my head, I got up and strolled over to the bar. As soon as I took a seat near the client, he introduced himself.
Good evening, Mr. Sullivan. My name is Elijah Thorne. My employer is in need of your services. We are willing to pay twice your normal rate. Half up front, the rest upon delivery, as well as a bonus if the cargo is undamaged.
Pausing to reach into his pocket, he pulled out a sheet of paper, placed it on the bar, and slid it to me before continuing.
If you agree, you and your team sign the contract to receive further instructions.
Taking a moment to look him over, I almost laughed. Granted, signing a contract was a little out of the ordinary, but for twice our normal rate, I didn't have any objections. That's when I looked down at the paper. It was blank. What's this? Are you fucking with me right now? 'Cause if you are, I'm telling you. I got up, reaching for the pistol on my hip.
That's a really bad idea.
For the first time since I sat down, his monotone demeanour shifted as an odd smile eased its way across his lips.
Calm down, Mr. Sullivan. The contract is verbal. This is just confirmation. Shall we proceed, or is this the end of our conversation?
I didn't have to look back to know Sam and Dre were watching. I relaxed and slowly moved my hand away from the gun, then waved them over. Of course they were in. Why wouldn't they be? We all signed and he gave us the rest of the information. A truck carrying beef and pork to the industrial sector was coming into town. Our job was to make sure it never got to its destination. As usual, there would be armed escorts, but it wasn't anything we hadn't dealt with before. Aside from the contract, the jobs seemed pretty standard. The truck would arrive 2 days after the meet, and from the moment we laid eyes on it, we knew this wasn't your run-of-the-mill gig. Holy shit! Those are armoured trucks! Who are these guys? Sam asked, passing the binoculars to me. Taking a look for myself, I instantly recognised the uniforms the escorts were wearing. Mercenaries. Whatever's in that shipment must be important. I don't think we are snatching food on this one, Sam. Dre came jogging up a few seconds later. The explosives are all set. What's the target looking like? Grabbing the 50 cal and the rest of her gear, Sam grumbled and left to go into position. A little confused, Dre scratched his head and watched her vanish down the stairwell. What's up her ass? What's the problem? Thorne set us up. No one hires mercs for hamburgers and spare ribs. With that, I checked my ammo and headed for the street. Dre shrugged his shoulders and chuckled while taking a look for himself before stopping me. So what? A gig's a gig. Who cares what's in the truck as long as we get paid? He was right, but I didn't like the idea of going toe-to-toe with trained soldiers. Driver, keep the street clear till we're out of here. Sam's picking us up by the river. If anything goes wrong, meet up at the safe house. Once we were all in position, it was a 5-minute wait till the convoy hit the strike zone. Dre detonated the explosives, wiping out the lead escort. When they stopped, I rolled 2 grenades under the tailed car. Sam, on the 50, was dropping anyone who hadn't been downed by the blasts, starting with the driver of the truck. The whole thing was smooth as silk till Sam got behind the wheel. Then all hell broke loose. Dre and I were at the rear of the truck, and I guess curiosity got the best of him. Let's open it up and see what all the fuss is about. I knew it was a bad idea, but once the big man gets a thought stuck in his head, there's no stopping him. Pulling a small pry bar from his pack, he broke the lock and opened the cargo door. As he did, a voice from inside yelled, "Get back!" Once the fog from the refrigerated trailer cleared, we saw him. From what I could make out, he seemed normal enough, but before either of us could say a word, more mercenaries rolled in and started shooting. Dre, who was standing on the lift gate, yelled to Sam, "Go! Go! Go!" Since I was still on the street, I had laid down cover fire so they could drive off. I wasn't worried about splitting up. I was more concerned with the reinforcements we never saw coming. Letting off a few quick bursts, I popped a smoke and made a dash for a nearby alley. Once I had cover, I watched Sam and Dre vanish around a corner with a second set of mercs hot on their tail. There was no time to think. Bullets zipped by, pinging off the walls around me as I made a break for it. I ran, firing back, and managed to drop one of the two of them before taking a slug to the shoulder. The impact spun me, causing me to tumble backwards, landing hard as they closed in. Grunting through the pain, I pulled my sidearm and fired. The first unlucky bastard took one to the head and dropped, while the others dove for cover. Scrambling to my feet, I grabbed the last frag from my vest, pulled the pen and tossed it while diving for cover behind the closest dumpster. After the explosion, I could hear one of them screaming. Checking my weapon, I got up and peeped around the corner to get a look. The grenade landed close enough to splatter one of them against the wall. The other had lost his legs and was dragging himself up the alley. I walked over, put one in the back of his skull and got out of there before anyone else showed up. It took me all day to make it to the safe house and patch myself up. Protocol for situations like this is simple. If no one shows in 24 hours, torch the safe house and get out of town. I waited, but they never showed up. There was no way I was walking away from this. Thorn had some explaining to do. One way or the other, he was going to tell me what I wanted to know. The drop location for the truck was at the harbour. He was supposed to meet us there and complete the deal, but with my team missing, I wasn't sure how things would play out. I got there early to scout the place just in case it was another trap. It was a ghost town, nothing but old buildings and camps. I watched and waited till they arrived. The moment they were in place, I moved in. He brought bodyguards with him this time. That wasn't going to stop me. Staying out of sight, I manoeuvred my way around behind them, and once I was close enough, I shot one of them in the back of the head before telling the other to drop his weapon and kick it away. Thorn didn't even flinch.
"Hello, Mr. Sullivan. I take it things didn't go as planned."
Agitated by his calm demeanour, I shot the other guard in the face, then turned my weapon on him. "Yeah, you could say that. Now, how about you tell me what the fuck's going on here?" Pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, he quickly covered his mouth and nose while taking a step back.
"That's unfortunate. You shouldn't have opened the truck, Mr. Sullivan. I'm afraid our business here is done. If your people are still alive, they won't be for much longer. The man on that truck was highly contagious. Anyone within 8 feet of him is contaminated."
Contaminated? What the hell are you talking about? What was on that truck, Thorn? The sound of incoming vehicles told me it was time to go. Using the pistol, I bashed him over the head, knocking him unconscious, before stuffing him in the trunk. Moving as fast as I could, I get behind the wheel, cranked the engine and peeled out of there as more armoured cars came speeding in. They were on my ass in a heartbeat. Bullets shattered the windows, punching holes through the car as I did my best to avoid getting run off the road. Swerving, narrowly avoiding old shipping containers, I spotted a hard right coming up that would put me back out on the highway. A bullet zipped past me, clipping my ear before shattering the windshield. As I banked the turn and mashed the gas, the car on my left smashed into a concrete divider and flipped. But the one on my right made the turn with me. I could almost see the highway ahead, but at this point I'm literally driving blind. Thanks to the shattered windshield, I could barely make out the people that were trying to get out of the way. I know for a fact I hit one of them because the blood splattered across the glass, making it that much harder to see. I knew the turn had to be coming. I braced myself and drifted into it, praying for a good stretch of road ahead of me, but the armoured car clipped my tail and sent me sliding sideways into a light post. The passenger side crumpled in, sending what was left of the shattered window flying as I came to a stop. My head was spinning and my vision was blurred, but I had to get moving. I could hear them coming back. Grabbing my pistol, I managed to climb into the back seat and out the rear door as they got out and opened fire on the car. When they stopped to reload, I heard one of them call out,
Confirm the kill! We have to bring back proof!
I waited, listening to the footsteps get closer. When I could hear him breathing, I popped up and shot him in the chest. The other two automatically fell back for cover, giving me time to drop a few rounds into one of them before the last man standing opened fire. I'd like to say I have the best luck ever, but the odds are the guy was really just a bad shot. A few seconds later, he was dead. The street was quiet and I needed a smoke. Judging by the condition of the car, Thorne was either dead or seriously fucked up, but I had to be sure. It took a second to get the trunk open. In a way, I was right. Twice. He was both completely messed up and very dead. Great. Checking the body told me two things. One, he wasn't carrying a weapon, and two, he was never going to pay us. He didn't have a dime on him. I took the armoured car. None of the usual spots could house a truck that size, and if I knew Sam, she would go to the one place no one would look for it, the truck stop. Just outside of the city stands the last truck stop in operation. It's run by the Russo family, the only old world crime syndicate still holding ground in this city. When I arrived, it was jumping as usual. Lot lizards strolled through the hustling johns, while others roamed around getting drunk or high. The place was a non-stop party, but just below the surface, anyone with a pair of eyes could tell this wasn't the place to cause trouble. Finding Sam didn't take long. All I had to do was follow the crowd. Wherever there was action, she would be somewhere close by. There was a fight being held in the rear lot. Two massive meatheads were beating the hell out of one another, while onlookers made bets. I found Sam surrounded by a group of people waving money. When she spotted me, she nodded, then announced to the ones around her, "Alright, that's it. No more bets. It's double or nothing and a quad for the underdog. Come see me after the fight. I'll be at the bar." Once the crowd dispersed, she came over. "We need to talk." She paused for a second to point out a quiet spot between two trailers. I followed her, and once we were sure no one was listening, she got to it. "I don't know where Dre is. He took off with that guy from the truck. We split up trying to shake the goon squad. I'm not sure they made it." "What is this, Max? Who was that guy, and what the hell did we get into?" Your guess is as good as mine. Thorn's dead, and before you ask, no, I didn't kill him. He said something about the guy being contagious, but I didn't get any details. Thumbing through the stack of cash in her hands, Sam stood there rolling it all over before looking up at me. We can talk about it later. We gotta get out of here before the fight's over. I eyeballed a couple of bikes we can take. Let's go. As we turned to leave, a figure stepped into the opening ahead of us and sarcastically blurted out, "You weren't trying to leave the party early with you. That's just bad form." He paused when he saw me. Well, holy shit, Max? Today must be my lucky day. I get to kill a thief and a dirtbag. Narrowing my eyes to get a good look at him, I realised who it was. Frank Russo. He and his brother Paul ran the truck stop for their mother. About a year ago, I double-crossed them and left them both to die in the desert. Since then, we've had a less than favourable relationship. The last time I saw them, I shot a handful of their guys and blew up their meth lab. I honestly thought he was about to shoot me, then the radio dangling from his belt blared out.
"There's a problem in the main building. Get here now."
Keeping his eyes locked on us, he responded,
On the way.
then motioned towards us.
You heard the man. Let's go. There's no way I'm letting you two out of my sight.
Frank waved over two of his goons to disarm us, then guided us towards the main building. As we walked, people ran past screaming. The closer we got, the more of them there were. Before we knew it, there was a full-on stampede. Taking the advantage of the chaos, I slipped the small blade I kept in my sleeve out and stabbed one of the guards in the neck, while taking my gun back and shooting the second guard. Sam quickly grabbed the money and her weapon as I turned and took a shot at Frank. I'm not sure if I shot him. He was swept away in the crowd, but it didn't matter. Sam motioned for me to follow her and I did my best to keep up. Zigzagging through the chaos, we rushed to the bike she mentioned earlier, but the riders were mounting up when we arrived. Sam quickly shot one and I dropped the other before they could speed off. Hopping on my new ride, I glanced to Sam and saw she was staring back into the crowd. Turning to get a look for myself, I couldn't see much. There were too many moving targets. Somewhere in all the commotion, a body was tossed into the air and people started shooting. I yelled to Sam, "Mount up! We gotta go!" She responded, pointing towards the crowd. "I think I saw Dre." Looking to where she was pointing, I got off the bike. 2 minutes! If we don't see him, we're out of here. Lead the way." Without another word, she took off, and once again I found myself struggling to keep up. We ran against the surging crowd till I started seeing shredded corpses and maimed survivors. By the time we'd made it to the main building, it was a slaughterhouse. I spotted Dre right away, only he wasn't human anymore. His body was more of a husk, suspended in the air by the fleshy tendrils that sprouted from the sides of his abdomen, acting as both arms and legs. The centre of his torso was a bloody protruding mouth, complete with dagger-like teeth that tore through anyone unlucky enough to be within reach. Thorn's words echoed through my mind.
Anyone within 8 feet of him is contaminated.
Grabbing Sam's arm, I told her we had to go and pulled her away before either of us got any closer. We rushed back to the bikes and hauled ass out of there. We didn't stop till we hit an old motel a few miles away. The place wasn't much to look at. Most of it was rubble, but there were a couple of usable rooms left standing. We just needed a minute to wrap our heads around what we'd seen. Once the bikes were hidden, we ducked into one of the rooms to stay out of sight. When we were sure we hadn't been followed, Sam started rambling. "What the hell was that? Jesus, Max, is that going to happen to us? I didn't even touch the guy. And what about..." A sound from outside interrupted her. Simultaneously grabbing our weapons, we went silent, getting into position to take a look. At first glance, I didn't see anything. After a few seconds, an odour drifted in. A strong metallic funk with a slight tinge of decay lingered in the air. Curiously sniffing, I whispered to Sam, "What's that smell?" She shrugged her shoulders and then paused, motioning to her right. "I've got a target. Holy fuck! It's him! It's Dre!" He staggered out of the shadows, covered in blood, groaning.
Kill me!
The mouth on his torso was now a withered, meaty stump that released a syrupy, yellowish substance every time he moved. Hanging limply at his sides, the tendrils dragged in the dirt, creating a snail trail that snaked off in the distance. He was almost unrecognisable. His once heavily muscled frame was now fragile and thin. But worst of all was that smell. I could almost see it wafting up from his skin, being taken away by the warm summer breeze. Lining up her shot, Sam took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. Instead of dropping to the ground, Dre burst like a balloon, releasing hundreds of worm-like creatures that burrowed into the dirt and vanished. We both stood there speechless, staring at a wet spot in the dirt, till something moving in the darkness snapped me out of it. Sam blurted out, "Incoming!" and opened fire. More of those things were headed our way, and they were following the trail Dre left. Bullets weren't stopping them. The shots would knock them down, but they'd get right back up. Throwing open the door, I told her we had to get out of there and made a run for the bikes. I didn't realise she wasn't behind me till I got there and turned to fire off a few rounds. She was still standing in front of the room, shooting into the crowd as it slammed into her. Saving her was out of the picture. I got on the closest bike and tore out of there. I wasn't letting them get anywhere near me. I drove till I ran out of gas, ditched the ride, then started walking. Digging in my pocket, I dug out my smokes and fired one up. I almost had to laugh. The last time I was on a road like this, I met the devil. Literally. Just thinking about her makes my teeth itch. In any case, I walked till the sun came up. About a quarter mile ahead of me, I could see an unmarked road leading off into the forest. Stopping for a moment, I looked down the highway as far as I could see. There was nothing but open road. With the sun up, the walk would be hell. Checking the last of my ammo, I fired up another smoke and took the road into the woods. After an hour of walking, I came to an intersection that was backdropped by a concrete wall. In the centre of the intersection, there was an island with a stone neighbourhood marker that read Trail's End. Standing there looking at it, it was hard to believe places like this still existed. The road split and followed the wall in either direction, leading to a huge entrance gate that was left standing open. It took me half an hour to get there. At first glance, the place seemed abandoned, but it looked untouched. There was a park set on the edge of a man-made lake filled with clean water. There were no burnt out cars or bodies. The grass was green The streets were clean, and there was an honest to God corner store that looked like I could walk in and buy a beer fresh off the ice. Everything about this place was sending up red flags, but I was tired and starving. All I wanted to do was rest and maybe find some food. I cautiously made my way over to the store and peeped through the window. The shelves were empty and covered with dust, but the place was in great shape. Thinking there was no way the door would be open, I pulled on the handle and nearly jumped out of my skin when the chimes sounded, and it was. I let go, grabbed my rifle and froze, waiting for someone to come charging out. Silence. After a few seconds, I stepped in, making sure I locked the door behind me before I checked the rest of the place out. Once I was sure everything was somewhat secure, I went to the back room and laid down on the floor. There was no food, but it would do. I don't know how long it took me to fall asleep, but once I nodded off, I found myself in the one corner of the universe I'd hoped to never see again. Lucy's diner, sitting across from none other than the devil herself. She smiled that wicked smile and leaned in a bit closer. "Hello, Max. It's been a long time." "Of course it's you. Why wouldn't it be? What do you want?" Laughing at me, she shook her head and got up from the table. "Nothing. I was in the neighbourhood. Just thought I'd stop in to check in on an old friend." "First, we are not friends. Secondly, fuck off. This is my dream. You are invading my space." She didn't say another word, just smiled and walked out. As she stepped through the door, the chime sounded, and I woke up to men with guns storming into the storeroom with me.
Don't move!
The first guy barked, while the other two rushed in to take my weapons before snatching me up to my feet. They clearly weren't pros. They'd made the mistake and gotten too close. I was already counting down to my first strike when the one doing all the talking blurted out,
"Who are you? And why are you here?"
Slightly adjusting my position, I glanced at the two close to me, then back to him while bringing my hand up to scratch my cheek. This did two things. One, allowed me to range the guy on my right, and two, test the guy with the rifle aimed at me. He looked young, all of them did. I could tell they were nervous, as there's nothing worse than a scared person with a gun. I had to play this just right. I saw the gate open and came in to rest. I've been walking all night. This was the first place I found. That one statement was all I needed. I knew hearing the gate was open would set them off, giving me the opportunity to make a move. And it did. Before any of them could react, I slipped behind the one on my left, putting him in a chokehold while grabbing my pistol in his waistband and pulling the trigger. Let that be a lesson. Never stick a gun down the front of your pants. Anyway, I shot the second guy in the face, then turned my attention to the last man standing, who looked like all he wanted to do was get out of there. The kid in my chokehold was screaming his head off. He'd be passing out any second. "Drop the gun and I'll let you carry this guy out of here." He did. I couldn't believe it. I had to laugh. "You really are stupid, aren't you?" The look of surprise on his face was replaced by a bullet in his head when I pulled the trigger. Once I put the last guy out of his misery, I took all their ammo and searched the bodies. They seemed healthy. They'd been eating well. That meant they were either cannibals or there was a food supply here. In either case, I wasn't sticking around to find out. Knowing full well the gunshots would attract attention, I slipped out the back, looking for a quick exit. The run to the gate would leave me out in the open. The only other option was going deeper into the neighbourhood. Both were bad news. Both were bad ideas. Judging by the sound of engines headed my way, I only had a minute or two before I was neck deep in bullets or bullshit. I needed a way out. Sam used to say, "When you're on the bottom, the only way to go is up." She was right. Just above the dumpster there was an access ladder to the roof. I smirked thinking about her and Dre, then hurried my way to it and got out of sight. Lying there looking up into the sky, I listened to the men below me argue amongst themselves. There was a moment I thought about popping up and laying lead on the crowd, but the odds weren't in my favour. After a few seconds passed, one of them yelled out, "There's someone at the gate! Where the hell's Bobby?" The next thing I know, they're opening fire. I had to see what was going down. Crawling over to the edge to get a look, I peeked. A small crowd of those creatures spilled in through the open gates, while the guards did their best to mow them down. When they realised their bullets weren't stopping them, some retreated while others stood their ground. I watched, fully expecting those creatures to annihilate the remaining guards. Instead, I witnessed them being contaminated. The process wasn't what I was expecting. One by one, the guards were embraced by the creatures, then released. All of them dropped to the ground, convulsing, while the creatures wilted away to what was left of their human form, then shambled off towards the neighbourhood. After a few seconds, the guards went still. The bodies were ballooning up, swelling to the bursting point, before the skin split, revealing fleshy tendrils. Once they were mobile, they scurried away, following the trail left by the others. I waited till they were completely out of sight, then climbed down. As I turned to head for the gate, another creature came rushing in. It was Sam. She screeched and charged in my direction. I couldn't outrun her when she was normal. There was no way I was getting away now. The trucks the guards drove were just a few feet away. Grabbing my gun and opening fire, I knocked her down. Just long enough for me to hop in one of them and throw it in drive. Sam rushed out into the road ahead of me. Mashing the gas, I braced myself for the collision. On impact, she smacked against the hood, spraying that syrupy yellow slime across the windshield. A second later, a tendril cracked the glass as I lost control and veered off the road. One of the front tyres blew out when we jumped the curb and went flying down the embankment leading to the man-made lake. The truck rattled and clanked, skipping across the ground with Sam pounding on the hood, screeching till we hit the water. When the front end went under, it took her with it and brought me a few seconds to climb out while the truck was sinking. I didn't know if those things could swim or not, but anything had to be better than waiting to find out. Pulling myself out to the water, I heard a splash from behind me. Turning to get a look, I spotted Sam. She'd surfaced violently, flaying around, trying to stay afloat. Releasing an ear-piercing screech, she went under for the last time, and I slumped back into the grass, catching my breath. Not knowing if more of those things were coming, I didn't rest for long. Getting to my feet, scanning the area, I started making my way up the embankment. By the time I made it halfway to the street, the sound of her coming out of the water almost stopped me in my tracks. Fuck me. Without looking back, I scrambled the rest of the way to the road and took off running. I didn't slow down till I was well outside the gates. I had no idea why she hadn't chased me, and I didn't care. Staying at a steady jog, I made my way to the road leading out, then started walking as the highway came into view. The blazing sun overhead dried my clothes, but my smokes were ruined. Top that off with the fact I'd lost my rifle in the crash. I was having a shitty day. They say time flies when you're having fun. Well, I wasn't having fun, and time was dragging ass. It felt like I'd been walking forever. I constantly kept looking back to be sure there weren't any of those things following me. Then, as if my day couldn't possibly get any worse, I turned and spotted a convoy headed my way. I didn't have to guess who they were. The armoured vehicles told me everything I needed to know. I was too tired to run. Stopping, I closed my eyes and put my head down. A few seconds later, they pulled up and came to a stop, allowing 2 mercenaries to jump out and draw down on me. Hey fellas, look, I don't have the energy for this shit, so if you're gonna shoot me, just do it and get it over with. Neither of them responded. There was an awkward moment of silence before the rear door of the 3rd car in line opened, and out stepped Elijah Thorne. What the actual fuck? How are you alive? Without saying a word, he glanced up, spotting a pair of vultures circling overhead, before turning his attention to one of the mercs.
Put him in with the other one. We need to be back by nightfall.
They took my weapon, then escorted me to the last vehicle in the convoy, which was a modified box truck. The cargo area had been converted into an open-air cell. Sitting in the far corner was a familiar face. Frank. The moment he saw me, he smiled. Well, holy shit. Welcome to the party, asshole. I hope they kill you first so I get to watch. And I hope you all enjoy the blooper reel. Our current shit show kicks off at once. We were pounding down shots of moonshine and arguing over who. Staying out of sight, I manoeuvred my way. Tom's dead, and before you ask. No, sorry again. We both stood there speechless, staring at a wet spot in the dirt, till something moving. No, sorry again. I wasn't letting them get in. With the sun up, the walk. There was a moment I thought about popping up and laying. I had no idea why she hadn't chased me. Hey family, please be so kind as to throw punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing, you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. A very big thank you to getyaisha for allowing me to narrate this awesome series. Make sure to check out getyaisha's Reddit page for more brilliant stories. And be sure to check out the getyaisha playlist here for more of their stories that I may have already narrated. I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the authors that I have worked with and all the ones that I will work with in the future. So thank you all, my brothers and sisters. And why not hashtag cryptidsroost in your comments. If you would like to support the channel and help make us grow, I have an account at buymeacoffee.com. You can buy me a coffee with your donations, big or small, to that site. You can also support us at Ko-Fi, which is an alternative to Patreon. Also have an account at BitChute, which is an alternative to YouTube. Or you can support us and donate via paypal.me/cryptidsroost. All relevant links will be below. And don't forget to check out the end screen, see above. That will also list some more videos in my back catalogue. Take care everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.